Book of Heaven, Volume 11, Part 15. May 25th, 1916. The Work of the Celestial Farmer in the Soul. How correspondence is necessary in order to produce rich fruits. Continuing in my usual state, I was all afflicted, especially because in the past days, blessed Jesus had shown me how foreign soldiers were invading Italy, the great massacre of our soldiers, and the pools of blood that Jesus himself was horrified to look at. I felt my poor heart bursting with grief, and I said to Jesus, "Save my brothers, your images, from this pool of blood. Do not permit that any soul plunge into hell." And in seeing that divine justice shall ignite its fury even more against the poor creatures, I felt I was dying. Almost to distract me from such tormenting scenes, Jesus told me, "My daughter, the love with which I love souls is so great that as soon as the soul decides to give herself to me, I surround her with so much grace. I caress her. I move her. I pick her up. I endow her with sensible graces, with fervors, with inspirations, with squeezes of her heart. So, in seeing herself so filled with graces, the soul begins to love me, forms as though a foundation of prayers and pious practices within her heart, and begins to exercise herself in the virtues. All this forms a flowery field in the soul. But my love is not content with just flowers. It wants fruits. So it begins to make the flowers fall. That is, it strips her of the sensible love, of fervor, and of everything else, in order to make the fruits be born. If the soul is faithful, she continues her pious practices, her virtues. She takes no pleasure in any other human thing. She does not think about herself, but only of me. Through trust in me, she shall give flavor to the fruits. Through faithfulness, she shall make the fruits mature. And through courage, tolerance, and tranquility, they shall grow and become rich fruits. And I, the celestial farmer, shall pick these fruits and make of them my food. And I shall plant another field, more flowery and beautiful, in which heroic fruits shall grow, such as to snatch unheard of graces from my heart. But if she is unfaithful and mistrustful, becomes restless, takes pleasure in human things, and so forth, these fruits shall be unripe, insipid, bitter, covered with mud, and shall serve to embitter me and to make me withdraw from the soul. June 4th, 1916. Jesus pours his bitternesses into Luisa so as to spare the peoples, but it is too much for her to contain it all. This morning it seemed that my always lovable Jesus came. I clasped him to my heart, and Jesus gave me a kiss. But as he was kissing me, I felt a most bitter liquid flow from his mouth into mine. I remained surprised in seeing that without praying him, sweet Jesus was pouring his bitternesses into me. while other times I had prayed him so much, and he had not conceded it to me. Then, when I was filled with that most bitter liquid, Jesus continued pouring. It spilled outside. It went on the ground. And he still kept pouring, in such a way that a pool of that most bitter liquid formed around me and blessed Jesus. Then, as though relieved a little, he told me, "Daughter, have you seen how many bitternesses the creatures give me? It is so much that, unable to contain them any longer, I wanted to pour them into you, but you could not contain them either. So they went on the ground, and shall pour upon the peoples." And while saying this, he marked the various points and towns that were to be stricken by the invasions of foreign people, and some were running away, some were left naked and starved, some were exiled, some killed. Horror and fright everywhere. Jesus himself wanted to withdraw his gaze from so much tragedy. Frightened and terrorized, I wanted to prevent Jesus from doing this. But he seemed unshakable, and he told me, "My daughter, it is their very bitternesses that divine justice is pouring upon the peoples. I wanted to pour them in you first, in order to spare some points, to make you content. And what was left I poured upon them. My justice demands satisfaction. And I, my love and my life, I know little about justice. If I pray to you, it is for mercy. I make appeal to your love, to your wounds, to your blood. After all, they are always your children, your dear images. Poor brothers of mine, how shall they go on? Into what constraints shall they be put? To make me content, you tell me that you have poured into me, but the points you spare are too few." And he, "On the contrary, it is too much, and it is because I love you. Otherwise I would have spared nothing. And besides, have you not seen how you yourself were unable to contain any more?" I burst into crying, and I said, "Yet you tell me that you love me, and where is all this love that you have for me? True love knows how to content the beloved in everything. And then why don't you make me larger, so that I may contain more bitternesses, and spare my brothers?" Jesus cried with me and disappeared. June 15th, 1916. In the divine will, everything is complete. The most powerful prayers over the heart of Jesus, and those that move him the most, are to clothe oneself with all that he himself did and suffered. Continuing in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus came. He transformed me completely in him, and then he told me, "Daughter, pour yourself into my will to make complete reparations for me." My love feels an irresistible need for them. After so many offenses of creatures, it wants one at least, who, placing herself between me and them, would give me complete reparations, love for all, and would snatch from me graces for all. But you can do this only in my will, in which you shall find me and all creatures. Oh, with what yearnings am I waiting for you to enter into my will, to be able to find in you the satisfactions and the reparations of all. Only in my will shall you find all things in act, because I am engine, actor, and spectator of everything. Now, while he was saying this, I poured myself into his will. But who can say what I saw? I was in contact with every thought of creature, the life of which came from God. And I, in his will, multiplied myself in each thought, and with the sanctity of his will, I repaired everything. I had a thank you for all, a love for all. Then I multiplied myself in the gazes, in the words, and in everything else. But who can say what was happening? I lack the terms, and maybe the very angelic tongues would stammer. Therefore I stop here. So I spent the whole night with Jesus in his will. Then I felt the Queen Mamma near me, and she told me, "My daughter, pray." And I, "My mamma, let us pray together, for by myself I don't know how to pray." And she added, "The most powerful prayers over the heart of my son, and those that move him the most, are for the creature to clothe herself with everything he himself did and suffered, since he gave everything as gift to the creature. Therefore, my daughter, surround your head with the thorns of Jesus. Bead your eyes with his tears. Impregnate your tongue with his bitterness. Clothe your soul with his blood. Adorn yourself with his wounds. Pierce your hands and feet with his nails. And like another Christ, present yourself before his divine majesty. This sight shall move him in such a way that he shall not be able to deny anything to the soul who is clothed with his own insignia. But oh, how little do creatures know how to make use of the gifts that my Son gave them. These were my prayers upon earth, and these are my prayers in heaven." So together we clothed ourselves with the insignia of Jesus, and together we presented ourselves before the divine throne. This moved all. The angels made way for us, and remained as though surprised. I thanked Mamma, and I found myself inside myself. August 3rd, 1916. Each act the creature does is one more paradise she acquires in heaven. As I continue in my usual state, my lovable Jesus makes himself seen in passing, or he says a few words, and then he runs away, or he hides in my interior. I remember that one day he told me, "My daughter, I am the center, and all creation receives life from this center. So I am life of every thought, of every word, of every action, of everything. But creatures make use of this life I give them to take the occasion to offend me. I give life, and if they could, they would give me death." I also remember that as I prayed him to hold back the scourges, he told me, "Daughter, do you think I am the one who wants to scourge them? Ah, no. On the contrary, my love is so great that I consumed my whole life in redoing what man was obliged to do for the Supreme Majesty. And since my acts were divine, I multiplied them into so many as to redo them for all and for each one, in such a way as to fill heaven and earth, and to keep man defended, so that justice might not strike him. But man, with sin, breaks this defense, and once the defense is broken, the scourges strike man. But who can say all the little things he told me? Then this morning I was praying and lamenting to Jesus, for he was not answering me, especially because he does not stop chastising. And I said to him, "Why pray if you do not want to answer me? On the contrary, you tell me that the evil shall get worse." And he, "My daughter, good is always good. Even more, you must know that each prayer, each reparation, each act of love, any holy thing that the creature does, is one more paradise that she acquires. So the simplest holy act shall be one more paradise. One act less, a paradise less. In fact, every good act comes from God, and therefore, in every good act the soul takes God. And since God contains infinite, innumerable, eternal, immense joys, so many that the very blessed shall not arrive at enjoying them all throughout all eternity, it is no wonder, then, that since each good act acquires God, God is almost bound to substitute them with as many contentments. So if the soul suffers even distractions for love of me, in heaven her intelligence shall have more light, and shall enjoy as many more paradises for as many times as she has sacrificed her intelligence. And so much more shall she comprehend God. If she suffers coldness for love of me, so many paradises shall she enjoy of the variety of contentments that are present in my love. If darkness, so many more contentments in my inaccessible light. And so with all the rest. This is what one prayer more or one less means. August 6, 1916. Need of Jesus for souls who live in the divine will to multiply. As I was in my usual state, my sweet Jesus came for just a little, and in passing, and he said to me, "My daughter, my love feels an irresistible need for souls who live in my will to multiply, because they are the places of my quarters. My love wants to do good to all, but sins prevent me from pouring my benefits upon them. Therefore I keep searching for these quarters. In them I am not prevented from pouring my graces, and through them the towns and the people that surround them take part in them. Therefore, the more quarters I have on earth, the greater vent can I give to my love, and the more it pours itself out into benefits for the good of humanity." August 10th, 1916. How in the divine will our pains are together with those of Jesus. Continuing in my usual state, I was feeling embittered because of the privation of my lovable Jesus, and I was lamenting to him that each privation he caused me was a death that he gave me, and a cruel death, such that while one feels death, one cannot die. And I said, "How can you have the heart to give me so many deaths?" And Jesus in passing told me, "My daughter, do not lose heart. When my humanity was on earth, it contained all the lives of creatures, and these lives came all from me. But how many of them would not return into me, because they would die and bury themselves in hell? And I felt the death of each one that tormented my humanity. These deaths were the most sorrowful and cruel pain of my whole life, up to my last breath. My daughter, don't you want to take part in my pains? The death you feel because of my privation is nothing but a shadow of the pains of death that I felt because of the loss of souls. Therefore, give it to me to sweeten the so many cruel deaths that my humanity suffered. Let this pain flow in my will, and you shall find mine. And uniting with it, it shall run for the good of all, especially for those who are about to fall into the abyss. If you keep it for yourself, clouds shall form between you and me, and the current of my will shall be broken between you and me. Your pains shall not find mine. You shall not be able to diffuse yourself for the good of all, and shall feel all the weight of it. On the other hand, if you think of how to let everything that you may suffer flow in my will, there shall be no clouds for you. The very pains shall bring you light, and shall open new currents of union, of love, and of graces. August 12th, 1916. Glory of the souls who shall live in the divine will on earth. I was fusing myself in the most holy will, and my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, only by the one who lives in my will do I feel as though repaid for creation, redemption, and sanctification, and she glorifies me in the way in which the creature must glorify me. Therefore, these souls shall be the gems of my throne, and shall take within themselves all the contentments and the glory that each blessed shall have for himself alone. These souls shall be as though queens around my throne, and all the blessed shall be around them. And just as the blessed shall be as many suns that shall shine in the celestial Jerusalem, the souls who have lived in my will shall shine in my own sun. They shall be as though circumfused with my sun. And these souls shall see the blessed from within me, because it is right that, having lived on earth united with me, with my will, as they lived no life of their own, they have a place distinct from all others in heaven, and they continue in heaven the life that they lived on earth, completely transformed in me and immersed in the sea of my contentments. September 8th, 1916. For as long as the soul is in the divine will, so much of divine life can she say she lives on earth. The acts in the divine will are the simplest acts, but because they are simple, they communicate themselves to all. This morning, after communion, I felt that my lovable Jesus absorbed me completely in his will, in a special way, and I swam inside of it. But who can say what I felt? I have no words to express myself. Then Jesus told me, "My daughter, for as long as the soul is in my will, so much of divine life can she say she lives on earth. How I like it when I see that the soul enters into my will to live divine life in it. I like very much to see souls who repeat in my will what my humanity did in it. I received communion. I received myself in the will of the Father. And with this, I not only repaired everything, but finding immensity and all-seeingness of everything and every one in the divine will, I embraced all. I gave communion to all. And in seeing that many would not take part in the sacrament, and that the Father was offended, for they did not want to receive my life, I gave to the Father the satisfaction and the glory, as if all had received communion, giving to the Father the satisfaction and the glory of a divine life for each one. You too, receive communion in my will. Repeat what I did, and in this way you shall not only repair everything, but shall give me to all, as I intended to give myself to all, and shall give me the glory, as if all had received communion. My heart feels moved in seeing that, unable to give me anything from her own that is worthy of me, the creature takes my things. She makes them her own. She imitates the way I did them. And to please me, she gives them to me. And I, in my delight, keep repeating, "Brava, my daughter, you have done exactly what I did." Then he added, "The acts in my will are the simplest acts, but because they are simple, they communicate themselves to all. The light of the sun, because it is simple, is light of every eye, yet the sun is one. One act alone in my will, like most simple light, diffuses itself in every heart, in every work, in every one, yet the act is one. My very being, because it is most simple, is one single act, but an act that contains everything. It has no feet, but is the step of all, no eyes, but is the eye and light of all. It gives life to everything, but with no effort, with no toil, yet it gives the act of operating to all. So the soul in my will becomes simple, and together with me she multiplies in all, and does good to all. Oh, if all comprehended the immense value of the acts, even the littlest, done in my will, they would let not one act escape them. October 2nd, 1916. Effects of communion in the divine will. This morning I received communion in the way Jesus had taught me, that is, united with his humanity, his divinity, and his will. And Jesus, on coming, made himself seen, and I kissed him and clasped him to my heart. He returned my kiss and my embrace and told me, "My daughter, how content I am that you have come to receive me, united with my humanity, divinity, and will. You have renewed in me all the contentment I received when I communicated myself. And while you were kissing me and embracing me, since all of myself was in you, you contained all creatures, and I felt I was given the kiss of all, the embraces of all, because this was your will, as was mine, in communicating myself, to return to the Father all the love of creatures, even though many would not love him. The Father made up for their love in me, and I make up for the love of all creatures in you. And having found in my will the one who loves me, repairs me, and so forth, in the name of all, because in my will there is nothing that the creature cannot give me. I feel like loving creatures, even if they offend me, and I keep inventing stratagems of love around the hardest hearts in order to convert them. Only for love of these souls who do everything in my will do I feel as though chained, captured, and I concede to them the prodigies of the greatest conversions. October 13th, 1916. How the angels are around the soul who does the hours of the Passion. These hours are sweet little sips that souls give to Jesus. I was doing the hours of the Passion, and blessed Jesus told me, "My daughter, in the course of my mortal life, thousands and thousands of angels were the cortege of my humanity, gathering everything I did, my steps, my works, my words, and even my sighs, my pains, the drops of my blood, in sum, everything. They were the angels in charge of my custody and of paying me honor. Obedient to my every wish, they would rise to and descend from heaven to bring to the Father what I was doing. Now, these angels have a special office, and as the soul remembers my life, my passion, my blood, my wounds, my prayers, they come around this soul and gather her words, her prayers, her acts of compassion for me, her tears and her offerings. They unite them to mine, and they bring them before my Majesty to renew for me the glory of my own life. The delight of the angels is so great that, reverent, they listen to what the soul says and pray together with her. So, with what attention and respect must the soul do these hours, thinking that the angels hang upon her lips to repeat after her what she says." Then he added, "After the so many bitternesses that creatures give me, these hours are sweet little sips that souls give me. But for the many bitter sips I receive, the sweet ones are too few. Therefore, more diffusion, more diffusion." You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 11, Part 15. Fiat.